everyone. I'm so glad today to have a new episode of the podcast series Connecting Social Research to Society. I am with you, Sari Hanafi, Professor of Sociology at the American University of Beirut and founder of the Portal for Social Impact of Scientific Research in/on the Arab World, Athar. Today, I'm so glad to have a friend. She did her PhD with me. I was co-director, Fanny Christou. Good morning, Fanny.
Good morning.
Yes. So Fanny Christou is a Cypriot French political scientist and a human geographer specializing in diaspora politics, transnational mobilization, Palestinians and others, and the international relations between the Middle East and Europe. Currently, she serves as acting head of the MENA Programme and researcher at the Swedish Institute of International Affairs, and she is also an associate researcher at the Center for Arab and Mediterranean Study, CAREP. Her work explored the political agency of diasporic communities in the context of democratic backsliding and transnational repression in the light of foreign policy dynamics in Sweden and beyond, and we will talk extensively about that. She did a fieldwork in different sites, including Sudan and Sweden. She takes an interdisciplinary approach that produces research that bridges academic scholarship and policy engagement. Again, Fanny, so glad to have you. So let us start from the beginning to talk about why Fanny, a Cypriot, interested first in human geography and then going into studying something related to the Arab world, Palestinian diaspora in Europe.
Well, thank you so much, Sari, for this opportunity. I think it's a combination of many factors. Since I grew up in a family where politics and human rights were always important. As you mentioned, my dad is coming from Cyprus and then he moved to France with my mom. But he was always talking about conflicts and politics.
Which year around they arrived France?
In the 80s. And basically he was doing the war in Cyprus in 1974.
Okay, this is what I want to know.
So yes, this had an impact, of course, on him and then on the family. And an example is that actually I don't speak very well Greek. He didn't teach us. He didn't teach my sister. He didn't teach me because for him integration was important into the French society and so on. And he had to build his own career. But basically I think this had an impact. And later on, after I got my baccalaureate in France, I was young, I was 17 years old and I was a bit confused about what to do and where to go. So I say, okay, maybe continuing my studies through a field that could make me understand societies and politics. So I tried Sciences Po in France and I got accepted. So I entered Sciences Po, but again, I was very young, so it was a challenge. But I did graduate after 5 years.
Can you say in Bordeauxian way that in fact there is a social class issue who could succeed in Sciences Po or not
Well, I think first in France you have Sciences Po in Paris, which is back to that time it was still very much into the elite and so on, and I guess until now. It's still the same, and you have also other Sciences Po in other cities, like Toulouse, Strasbourg, Lyon, which is connected to Sciences Po Paris, but still there is a kind of difference between
different
them.
symbolic capital.
Yes, let's say that. But anyway, I tried, and I got it in Toulouse. So I went there and I did 2 internships during my graduation. So it was like a learning process. And the last 2 years you can specialize. So basically you can choose journalism, communication, geopolitics. And first I chose Europe because, again, my history, my roots, I say maybe I would like to focus more on Eastern Mediterranean and Europe. But that was a kind of challenge because it was more into public policy and all these bureaucratic European policies. So I didn't really like it. So during the last year of my graduation, I actually did a parallel master in geopolitics. And this one, I enjoyed it a lot. It was in international relations. And I got a course on the Middle East and on the Arab world. And this was like a kind of déclic for me. And I did my master thesis on the Palestinian refugees.
Why Palestinian refugees?
And this is back again to maybe the history of my dad. I was still young and I was hesitating between doing something on Cyprus and on another similar conflict. And you know, when you are young and you are too much involved in some topics, you decide not to go for this one, but to another one that looks similar. So,
because I mean, I looked at the trajectory of migrant students or students from migrant origin. I mean, it's often go to their to dig into their roots.
Yes.
I mean, you know me. I did my PhD in France about Syria and Syrian engineers. I was an engineer, so it's something like you need to understand really you and your surrounding. But it's very interesting that you say no. I want to discover a new world.
Yeah, maybe to have more experience and to be able to, after a few years, maybe go back to my roots and try to make some parallel, which is something that now I'm trying to develop. I wish to continue like working on the Palestinian diaspora, but still including other case studies such as the Cypriot one. But I've decided to go for the Arab world and discovering the similarities, the differences and so on. And I took it through even a specific lens, which was international law. Maybe it's also the impact of my dad again, because he's a lawyer, not at all in international relations, but more into business law. But law was always something I was interested in, like to protect minorities and human rights and so on. So my master thesis was addressing the recognition of the Palestinian refugees in international law. And after that, I worked for a bit in Paris at the Ombudsman for Human Rights, Défenseur des Droits, which was super interesting also to touch upon different topics and also the link with the state and policy and so on.
It was a French one or European one?
The French one, the one in
French
Paris.
One. Yes. And it was really ombudsman properly saying it means that people go and complain about specific things.
Yes, but I was not in this department. I was in the department working on international relations.
Okay.
But still, we were working with other ombudsmen in the Mediterranean and so on. And after that, I was young, female. I applied for jobs, but it was not successful. So I say, okay, what to do? And I start thinking that, yes, I need to continue my scientific development and trajectory. I need to reflect more. I need to have more knowledge. So I took the choice of the PhD. And then I applied in different institutes and so on. And I got in touch with the University of Poitiers, which is specialized in migration studies. And there I met my former supervisor, and then I met you. And it was like a combination of factors, but I still wanted to work on the Palestinian diaspora. This was my topic.
And it was a time really where there is issue of a lot of issue at stakes on Palestinian diaspora. I mean, in that time, if you like, some hope about Oslo process. What is the contribution of Palestinian diaspora on the constructing of Palestinian entity, but also it's about if you like socioeconomic rights in
Yes. Yeah. It was in 2000. I started my PhD in 2013. I think. And yes, I mean, the Palestinian cause was like in a turning point. There were many developments, but I was sure about something. I want to engage with the concept of diaspora, and this is also something that my mom actually told me. You should work on diaspora. You are coming from a diaspora. You should learn more about it. So I say yes, and the Palestinian was very important to me. And the idea first was to do the Palestinian diaspora, to study it in Lebanon. And that's how also we get to know you and to involve you, and I was so happy about that.
Thank you.
But then we say maybe it would be interesting to look at the Palestinian diaspora far from the homeland and disconnected from the Middle East actually. What are the implications? What does it mean to be a Palestinian in another country which is far from Palestine, from Lebanon, from Syria? And then we say, okay, maybe Germany, maybe Sweden, and then again for a combination, due to a combination of factors, I say, okay, maybe Sweden. So I came to Sweden.
And Kamil Durai has a connections in Sweden.
And yes,
I mean, his sister there, if my memory is good.
Exactly. So it was like again a combination of things due to his connection and the interest for developing something in Sweden. I got some grants there, so I started my fieldwork. But in parallel, I mean, when I finished my degree in political science together with this master, I also started another master in international relations and cultural strategies. And in parallel of this one, I started my PhD. So it was like a lot to cover. And in parallel, I was also working at the International Organization for Migration, which also expanded my, my
scope of.
Yes, and also to realize, okay, maybe through the PhD, do I want to do something that is very much into academia? Yeah. Do I want to do something related to policy dialogue? And it was still new for me, so I was navigating all these new spaces. But I went to Sweden in 2015 for the first time, and yes, I mean, I was kind of happy to see Sweden at that time, because if you remember, it was like the start of the so-called refugee crisis.
That's true.
And in Sweden, I arrived, I remember, at the central station, and I saw all these solidarity initiatives, welcome refugees, protest in the streets. So for me, it was like, okay, this is good. I'm in a good place to work. So that was a positive thing. But after a few years, it's shifted, and quite quickly, I would say.
Yeah.
So
no, this is very important. I would like first. For those who have not read your publication around your thesis, again, yesterday I was not very happy to know that your excellent thesis have not yet been published as a book, but I know it was there is interesting articles published on from your thesis. Can you tell us what is the main findings about being a Palestinian in Sweden, and particularly you did a comparison with France, if you like. And I found that comparison also is interesting.
There are many findings, and I think, of course, I've not published yet my book, but hopefully, inshallah, it will come soon.
Inshallah.
But on the other hand, I'm glad I've not published it yet, because if I had written it directly after my PhD, maybe I would have not the same kind of
perspective
that I have today.
Yeah.
Because when I finished my PhD, the main findings I have was that the Palestinian diaspora is not one. We have many Palestinian diasporas in Sweden. Due to the migration trajectory, migration background, activism background, the generation, even in the Palestinian case, I would say generation doesn't make sense. I mean, what do we mean by generation? Also, gender is another aspect. So the main finding was like, yes, we have a political mobilization. We still have hope from the perspective of the Palestinian diaspora. But 10 years later, and specifically after October 7, it's actually the role played by the host countries, in my case Sweden, that has an impact on the ways Palestinians mobilize and which tools they can find, and the way they reflect themselves on the Swedish society.
Yeah.
So I think it's very interesting because we have this tendency to look at only the host country or the home country, and my, I think, contribution is to very much bridge this aspect and try to say it's not only the home country, it's not only the host country, but it's a mix of everything, and the migration trajectory is very important.
Which can encompass in the concept of transnational.
Yes, but
it means that
it's not even only transnational. I think we need to go further because transnationalism is also related to the state somehow, and we need to disconnect from the state, which was somehow a colonial creation, and I mean we need to go further. We need to move beyond this concept to understand that. And I also try to bring translocalism, which I think is important, the ways these Palestinian communities try to reconnect between spaces, between localities. So in my case, I did my fieldwork in one specific city, which is Malmö.
Which really the major gathering of the Palestinian and Arabs, and I would say Syrian later on.
Yeah, exactly, because it's very close to Denmark, so there is a border between Sweden and Denmark here in Malmö. And I think it's very interesting to look at the localities and the way one city can reconnect to other cities and to other spaces, like refugee camps, for example.
And I do remember from your thesis showing how Palestinian political mobilization in Sweden is connected to the right of return movement in Europe, where when you study it, it was really, I would say, the golden age. No?
It was very important, and it was still like a common denominator across generations, I would say. The right to return was something always in the mind, in the spirits of these Palestinians, and until now. But I think that 2023 brought some kind of
another struggle.
Yes,
or another,
but of course the right to return is still there.
Fanny, we are in Palestine Forum in Doha. You did amazing presentation. I enjoyed to attend it, and in fact, I realize that now when we talk about BDS movement, when we talk about struggle against the Israeli genocide, that is very mixed between Sweden and Palestinian, Sweden origin, if you like, because the Palestinian also Sweden. But I mean, do you agree with me that now it's the political mobilization? I mean, there is really, if you like, a very important bulk of activists. I mean, they are not Palestinian, but so much affected, I would say, but by what the everyday, the graphically broadcast genocide in Gaza. Can you tell us about, particularly about this fieldwork? I mean, what you present 2 days ago, I think.
Yeah, I mean, you mean like the Swedish people?
Yeah.
I think they get more and more involved into the protest, into the boycott movement. I didn't conduct my fieldwork among Swedes. I only conduct fieldwork among Palestinians and among other diaspora, because it's a comparative project.
But from the images, yes, I saw white, if you like.
From the observation I conducted, even if though I didn't conduct interviews with Swedes, with Swedish people, from the observation during the protest, you can see more and more Swedish people, with Palestinian flags, and it's kind of, it's nice to see in the streets Swedes people or any other communities, any other people having like a kufiye in the streets in their everyday lives. And they bring the Palestinian spirit into the streets of Malmö, which is, I think, important.
Fanny, listening to you 2 days ago about, I mean, we didn't see each other since the defense thesis, the happy day of the defense thesis. So, and I saw trajectory, which is, I would say, your trajectory is a typical of your generation. I mean, a kind of difficult access to academic work. I mean, universities, if you like, as a teacher or researcher inside of the university or research center, and in fact, a kind of so I saw from your trajectory that you went into international organization. And can you tell us about just to say one word, that this is really very connected to commodification of higher education and the neoliberalism. I mean, that we need less and less permanent people, and just people can get 2 years here, 3 years. Can you tell us about your trajectory?
I remember when I was doing my PhD, the other supervisor, Kamel Dorai, told me, the PhD is not the most difficult part. What will come next is more difficult. And I was like, no, it's not true. PhD is difficult. But actually, he was right. I mean, after the PhD is like when things get complicated. Because you're asked to do many things, to publish, to do communication, to disseminate your work among the larger audience, to teach, and so on, and to get grants as well. So after my PhD, I was lucky. I got a grant from the Red Cross to continue my work on the Palestinian diaspora in Germany.
Which Red Cross?
The French Red Cross, sorry.
The French
Foundation. And then after that, I also got another grant to work on another research project dealing with migration still, but in another context, in Sudan, in the context of climate change. And then after that, I also got a position, but still it's not permanent. And as you mentioned, it reflects like the society and the political world we are currently living in. And I'm in Sweden. I've been there for quite a while now, but still with non-permanent jobs. And I like Sweden very much. But on the other hand, you can feel that it's like everywhere else. There is no meritocracy anymore, which is sad. But that's the reality, and you always need to struggle.
What do you mean when you say there is no meritocracy? It means that is it connection matter? Do you mean that if you like in the Swedish society they are expecting to have somebody if you like, grow up in Sweden? No?
Yeah, I mean, I cannot generalize, of course,
Yeah.
and I would not say it's a Swedish thing. I think it's a European and even global thing.
Yeah, that's true.
So yes, I mean, if you look at the people who are hired, who have applied for the same position, let's say that most of the time or many times, like they have been studying the master in the country, the PhD in the country, the postdoc in the country, or like linked to the university in the country. So that's what I mean. But again, I cannot generalize, and I think this reflects like a global thing. And it's also another thing. It's linked to the fact that more and more dealing with migration studies and dealing with the Arab world become very challenging. Because migration policies are more and more restricted, securitized, so they don't, I guess they don't really want to promote that research or teaching about that. And it's the same for the Arab world. I mean, working on the Middle East or on Islam or religious studies, I mean, yes, it's becoming more and more difficult. There are less and less positions. So that's academia.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there is 2-3 points really I want to explore with you. First of all, I'm very interested to hear more about, if you like, your fieldwork in Sudan, and particularly when you did it, it was a time where there is awareness that major waves of refugees is not only related to war, but to climate change. So can you tell us where did you do your field work in Sudan? And
yeah, and I did it in 2020 in January in Khartoum. And it was among Sudanese communities, but also migrant communities from Yemen, from Eritrea, from Ethiopia, or internally displaced people due to climate change. And the thing is that I started my PhD and it was just before Corona, just before the pandemic.
My God, man, this is what I want to say. This is a Corona time.
This was horrible for everyone. But basically I couldn't return to conduct more interviews and to do my proper fieldwork. So we had to find some help, and we got some amazing research assistants there to help us to do the interviews and to conduct the fieldwork. But we had to change a little bit the project itself. But yes, due to the pandemic, we have been a bit, maybe everyone was a bit disconnected. So the project was difficult to
So it was about Darfur or no?
No, it was about how how can communities, both Sudanese people and migrant communities, internally displaced people, face climate change, and what do they do to face it through their own history, through their own knowledge, by building things to face climate change and environmental disasters in Khartoum. And we focus on a specific area, which was Tuti Island, where you have like many communities there, but also in another refugee camp. And to understand more what do they face and how do they create solidarity to face that.
Very interesting. And then can you tell us a little bit about migration policy, and particularly Sweden, for instance, moved from socio-democrat government to Swedish Democrat, which is a right-wing party, and I think they have an alliance with the far right wing a little bit. So can you tell us how this will impact Swedish policy, not only vis-a-vis the Palestinians, but also the Syrian and beyond, if you like?
Yeah. So, as I say, when I arrived in 2015, it was still the Social Democrats, and 1 year before they recognized Palestine in Sweden. But then in 2016, they started like implementing restriction migration policies. And as I said before, when one arrives in a country where you see welcome refugees and so on, you are so enthusiastic, but then you go deeper into the history of the country. And you realize that, okay, Sweden, as we depicted in the Western media, for example in France, like as a model, as an exception, humanitarianism, neutrality and so on, I would say yes and no. I mean, it's not so white and black. And you need also to understand the history of Sweden, its colonial legacy, with the Sami people, for example, and the recent migration shift. I think, again, it's deeply linked to this trajectory the country has taken, but also the geopolitical context and the role of Europe. I mean, any European country has restricted its migration policies, basically. But in 2016, they started implementing rules and laws to restrict migration, because back to that time, they welcomed 165,000 migrants, so it was like huge for Sweden, apparently. But after a few years, they keep on restricting migration policies, and until the recent elections in 2022, basically it's a coalition that has been created, formed by a right coalition between the moderates, the liberals and the Christians. But in order to manage their policies, they had to get some support from the Swedish Democrats, which is a right-wing, extreme right-wing political party. And one of the things they have implemented is the TIDO agreement, which is like a guarantee for the current government to make sure that they can proceed with what they want, but it means also to have the Swedish Democrats on board. And this means more migration policies, again more restricted, and they have implemented like very, very tough things on migrants. Now they are discussing, for example, return migration policies.
And they are discussing this with Syrians.
Yes.
I mean, starting from the criminals and
and to, as they say, to face and to address the shadow society, which is basically for them linked to migrants. So it's shifting a lot, but let's see the election in September.
Something intrigued me, Fanny. Can you explain that, for instance, in Sweden, where you don't have really, if you like, a sharp phenomenon of Islamophobia, and nevertheless you have this incident about burning Quran there, and it's almost allowed in the name of freedom of expression, while this one attempt in France, it was repressed by the very Islamophobic, I would say, society and the state that say you cannot do it, and it's clearly is a hate, is part of hate speech or a hate act. So how can you explain, and you really work on migration in France and in Sweden, how would you explain this? It was really intriguing for me how they, it's clear, I mean, it's burning, if I burn, I don't know, a Bible or...
Yeah, I mean, in Sweden this is linked to the freedom of speech, right?
Yeah.
But I think it's also linked to the Swedish society and politics. I mean, the way they work and the way they are. You have a great sense of freedom of speech, so basically it's allowed.
Yeah.
But yeah. I don't know how to answer that.
Yeah. But you know my work about
Yes.
child fostering or removal from biological family to foster families in Sweden, and it's very interesting that I work with 2-3 migrants who really he give me data, etc., and they ask me not to publish their name or to thank them in my paper. It means that also there is a kind of a taboo topic to talk about, and this is not part of the freedom of expression, no?
Yes, but maybe it's also linked to the diversity of migrants and diaspora communities, and maybe I realize it even more when I do my current project, which is a comparison between the Kurds and the Palestinians in Sweden. And you know, for some communities, even if they are Muslim, like the way they regard Islam and the way they practice their religion is not the same. And of course, this has also an impact on the way the Swedish politics will behave, basically.
Yeah.
And this is what I try now to figure out and to write about, like the way Sweden will give voice to certain diasporic communities and not to others, depending on the broader geopolitical interest and foreign policy interests.
Yeah.
And
Now I remember, Fanny, one of my comment on your thesis was that you didn't dig much into religion. I mean, what the meaning of being religious Muslim, religious Palestinian versus non-religious Palestinian in their political mobilization and their integration, and So I'm so glad to hear that now you think this matter. I mean,
it's always mattered. But when I was doing my PhD, it was already so much long that I couldn't dip too much into the religious aspects as well as the gender aspects. Because it was very much about Palestinians and about political mobilization. And of course, religion, gender, and other factors are important, but you cannot cover everything, unfortunately. But now I'm trying to include also these factors by comparing the Palestinians with other communities and by reflecting more on the role host societies and host countries play into that.
By the way, we didn't talk about your methodology. Are you into more formal interviews or ethnographic? Because you live there actually, so it's not simply a formal interviews, no?
No.
So
for my PhD, I conducted interviews, semi-directed interviews with Palestinians, and I also conducted participant observations. And for the other projects, still on the Palestinian diaspora and the Kurdish diaspora, I continue the same method. However, when you live in the country, your research project and your fieldwork is like your everyday life. So basically, every year there was always something about Palestine in Sweden, in Malmö, so I was always attending as much as possible. So your research becomes integral part of your life, and I was very much, and I'm still very much into that. And this is where you can learn the most, actually, through everyday life, through events, not necessarily political events, but cultural events, cultural gathering. But of course, for the research per se, you need to have like a formal framework, because now you also need to have this ethical document and approval to make sure that your fieldwork is like registered and so on.
I hope it's not written one, like in the American mistrust.
Before conducting any research project, you have to submit like an application to the ethical review in Sweden, and then you get.
Yeah, but I mean, did you opt for an oral consent and not written consent with the informant?
Boss, you need to make sign them something.
Yeah, but this is really it hurts.
Yes.
If you like,
and it's
a kind
difficult because sometimes they don't want to sign anything.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's a very tough approach because you try to meet people and you need to ask them, okay, I'm going to conduct an interview, but you need to sign this paper, and then they don't really want because they can be afraid, and I understand that. So then it becomes an informal interview.
Yeah.
But
actually, this is where I'm always struggling with the IRB of the American University of Beirut about, if you like, this kind of medicalized approach, this kind of very bureaucratic. I mean. Very legalized. I mean that we need a signature. We need. There is no snowballing without. I mean, the informant inform the person before you you got the contact. I mean about private privacy in a time where our privacy is violated in every second through through our mobile, laptop, everything. I mean this is the paradox.
Yeah, I can understand it. If it's really to protect the people we are interviewing, but I'm not sure this is the main goal. I mean, and I think that we as academics, as researchers, I mean, this should be part of our own ethic. I mean,
absolutely.
Otherwise,
it's like
how can you become
how
can you become an academic if you don't know how to behave?
Exactly.
But still, apparently, we need to have these papers and to do it like formally and so on, which is a pity. Then, on the other hand, interviewing diasporic communities in Sweden, they are always willing to talk. They have so much to say. So sometimes they don't want to sign. So I, of course, don't force them. And it becomes more informal interview, and that's completely fine. But most of the time, this
this is a point that in fact more and more IRB force us to lie, and because when you say informal interviews, I mean it's also an interviews, and you it's a full-fledged interview.
Yes.
But I mean,
but then
you don't count it, and when I mean.
So we need to work on that that aspect, methodologically speaking, both from the bureaucratic administration and both from our own academic cycle. I mean, what is valid? Is an informal interview is valid when you do research? I would say yes. I mean, and you can have many informal interviews.
Fanny, you. I looked to your CV. You published in academic journals, and then you have reports. You have policy brief, somehow like this. So can you tell us, if you like, did you feel any constraint from moving from professional research, if I would say, into policy research? And maybe this is a time that we can talk about your engagement with society. I mean, how you you want how you will be sure that your research it trickle down to the community that you want to support, that you want to empower, or maybe you want to criticize. I mean, not necessarily always we are here to empower something.
I think in both cases there are challenges, because in academia, when you want to publish academic articles or books, it basically takes ages from the time to write, to submit, to receive acceptation, or to receive comments, to review your paper, and to be published. It can take up to 3 years.
Yeah.
So basically your material that you were using in your original paper, and specifically due to the geopolitical challenges or shifts or whatever, after 3 years your paper doesn't make sense anymore.
Absolutely.
So this is
last year when I got into journals, I mean, I want to see some thematic. I found many articles in COVID-19. I mean,
yes.
what's relevant now to...
So it's very difficult, and even more when in the same time you are not permanent, and you need also to work on your own job application, your research grant application. So sometimes you go to develop another project ID that is not very much linked to what you were doing, and you need to publish on this other topic. I mean, that's crazy, and this is very tough. So I guess that's why some researcher get this, how do you call it, academic or writing retreats.
Yeah.
But they have the privilege to be permanent in order to get this writing retreat. So that's one aspect. And regarding the policy aspect, when you are a scholar, when you are a researcher, you always need to have this policy impact and to make sure that your research is transferable or is disseminating to a larger audience. And I was doing it during my academic career, but for the last 2 years I'm working in a think tank, and we have also research, but it's interesting how to navigate these two worlds. So of course I was always doing it, but due to the context also, after 2023, this is when you realize that you really need to make sure that you know the audience, that you manage to navigate the different world. And this is where your legitimacy, based on your publications, based on your previous work, is very important, because you cannot strengthen policy dialogue if you don't have this kind of legitimacy or evidence.
Yeah, do you have chance to talk with the Palestinian community in Malmo to present your findings?
Yeah, I hope I will do it more, because I've tried to, when it comes to policy, I've tried to first target, let's say, the non-Palestinian audience, because we have this tendency to frame the Palestinian resistance as violent or stemming from specific organizations, and I wanted to deconstruct this, not because this is what I want to produce as a message, but because this is what I see.
Yeah, this is your research.
I mean, this is empirically evident. So I just wanted to show and to make sure that necessarily non-Palestinian communities are aware of what's going on, and why do Palestinians protest, what are they asking, which is basically freedom and justice, like everyone else. But I want really now to work also more with the Palestinian communities by developing hopefully some projects, some exhibitions. Yes, I hope.
Yeah.
Because this is the thing that I really need to. I mean, this work is for them as well, so that's what I want to do.
What is your next research project about?
Well, still working on migration, I would say. Still working on diaspora and the Middle East and Europe. I mean, this is always in my mind. It never ends. And it's always changing, so I would say that I would like to keep this research project as such, but maybe working more also on the region itself, the Middle East, maybe coming here, I don't know, but to get a better idea of what's going on here as well in terms of international politics and so on. Yeah.
This is really very, very interesting, and I think I like in your trajectory, Fanny, that really it's a focus trajectory always on around migration, and this is very important, by the way, and hopefully to hear in the future more stable job and
maybe to come back to what I was saying in the beginning. A research project idea that I have is to make a parallel or a comparison, I don't know how, but with Cyprus. I think this is the moment now for me, because I got maybe some kind of more maturity, and that's time. I feel it.
And a kind of identity crisis.
Yeah, maybe. Not an identity crisis, but you know, Cyprus is a very small country, and no one is talking about it basically. But on the other hand, I think that this is like
because it's doing well.
Maybe.
Funny. You know, I don't know if you know two anthropologists actually based on Sweden. They talk about Borea state, about Turkish area of the north of Cyprus, and it's very interesting to show that despite this part of the island, which only recognized by one state, Turkey, nevertheless is prosperous. And this is example where society is stronger than a state, if you like. And I think more and more we hear good news, a mobility, possibility. I mean, the fusion of the conflict. So really, it is. I don't know if I told you, Fanny. I went to Cyprus maybe 20 times. It was our favorite place to meet if we want to connect Palestinians from different boards. I mean, it's very easy to get a Cypriot visa than a Lebanese visa for a Palestinian. So we used to meet. But what is interesting, we used to meet on post-conflict project, if you like, because and definitely you know PRIO, this Norwegian Peace Research Center, where really they have they have an office in the border actually between the north and so Cyprus it's not an example where a conflict has been resolved, but a conflict were managed in non-violent way. So I think it's interesting.
That's
do you agree with me?
I agree. But I think it deserves more research.
No, definitely. This is why it deserves more research.
But maybe also what we can see now is the effect of the new generations there. I was supervising a student for his master thesis, and he was there conducting interviews with Turkish Cypriots, but the young generation, born after the adhesion of the South to the European Union. And I think this new generation is bringing also some kind of hope around the common Cypriot identity beyond the Greek Cypriot or Turkish Cypriot. So I think it's something we need to work on.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Fanny Christou, for this amazing interview talk between us. And thank you for your listening, and hopefully to see you in other podcast episode, and goodbye.